they've changed the king. Good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our Lyceum evening, coming to you from the Paul Christian Spiritualist Church down on the south coast of the UK. Great delight to welcome back to our platform tonight. A gentleman has been with us before, the lovely Jason Goldsworthy, CSNU T. Jason, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Nice to see you again. All the way from, and to say all the way from sunny Germany. Is it sunny Germany, or is it chilly Germany, or is it?
It's a bit chilly today.
Snowy Germany?
It's not snowy. It's a bit chilly and wet. I think that's all I can say for Germany at the moment.
Pretty much the same for the UK. It's chilly and grey.
Oh dear, yeah. Well, we've got the same sort of weather then.
Yes, yeah. It's just flat. It's not inviting. You know, it's not saying, "Oh, wrap up warm and stay indoors," and it's certainly not saying, "Oh, take a brisk walk in the countryside." It's just going there.
Exactly.
So we have a wonderful evening in the company of your good self, and we're going to be talking on a subject. Now, please, I'm not being funny, and I'm certainly not being detrimental to people. We hear a lot about the pioneers of our movement, which is wonderful. They have earned their right to be spoken of many years after they left this physical life. That is not in dispute. But that conversation, to me, needs progressing. You know, it's all very well to say in 1925 this happened. There are implications from everything that happened with our pioneers, everything they did, everything that was set up, everything that was accepted. And those implications, the energies reverberate through today, and will continue on into the future. So, yeah, the pioneers are a great integral part of our movement. They deserve recognition. They deserve bringing into the conversation. But again, as part of this progressive, because spiritualism, to me, is a very progressive movement. It says it in the title, the movement. Would you agree with that, Jason? Or would you say, shut up, Lawrence, you don't know what you're talking about?
No, certainly, I certainly would agree with it. When we look at the movement, what it was like with Emma Hardinge Britten, how she changed a lot of things, not just in spiritualism, but even women's rights, and started the movement there, but also movement in public speaking in America, and bringing mediumship in different forms to England. And it was a lot of the philosophy that she brought. But when you look also at Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the books that he'd written, the investigations of mediumship, how he proved in many situations that mediumship existed, and in that way, and Gordon Higginson, when you see how his mediumship stood for itself and showed us what the possibilities of mediumship was, where he was the president of the Spiritualist National Union, where he took things mediumship to the next level, but also created an opportunity where there was a learning platform for mediums as well. All these things are going on with the pioneers. So really, we're standing on the shoulders of the pioneers of the past. So what they've put forward, we're now standing on the shoulders of that. What they've created is the opportunity for us to do our mediumship the way that we do our mediumship. Yeah. So absolutely, Lawrence, I agree with you there. Yeah. I agree with you there. It's lovely. I think there's a little bit of a break in the internet here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lawrence.
Over to me. Okay. There seems to be a bit of an issue on Facebook, because all I've got is Facebook users coming. So welcome, whoever you are, to watching us tonight. But yeah, definitely the pioneers were the pioneers, because at that time it was getting spiritualism into the mainstream, out of, darkened rooms and private circles, and out into the public gaze, which is absolutely wonderful. But here we are now, and we seem to be slipping slightly from the public gaze. What? How do we promote what we actually, and I won't say it's a belief, because to me, spiritualism isn't a belief. I know it's a fact. For all my experiences, I know it's a fact that we continue on. How? I'm not quite sure, but we do. So how do we propagate that into today's society without going down the route of we've got to get the youngsters in the church? Because that's been a battle cry for many a year. And to date, I've never seen that successfully tackled.
So, how to promote spiritualism, or how to move it forward? Looking at what do we do as mediums? When we say that mediumship consists not only of just the demonstrating mediumship, but also the speaking, we're looking at how to bring that forward. We can continually do speaking over the past and take segments out of past books and do speaking from that point of view, or we could take speaking to this understanding of the now and speak to what's going on today. So it's like taking it to the level of, okay, what's going on in today? How do we move in this lifetime today? How are things moving and progressing in this life? And where does the speaking fit into that? And it's just really addressing, I think, subjects that are more appealing to people, Lawrence, where there might be people going through an economic crisis, and if that's going on, then then there's the inspiration of, okay, let's speak about real things. It's very nice to speak about things that our pioneers have brought through in the past, like Silver Birch, which is a fantastic book, fantastic information. But if we continually bring Silver Birch, we're going to really need to bring some of our own inspirations in here for today. So it's like taking it forward, moving it forward, where we're bringing inspiration of today to the people. And that's where we need to work closely with our spirit people, but also the congregation or the people that we're actually reaching out to, that we're really bringing forward inspiration that's going to have a healing and a wonderful effect on people's lives. So that's just that part that I'm thinking about speaking there, Lawrence. Mediumship itself, when we look at progression of mediumship, and we were talking before that when you put mediumship into a church, I mean, some people, I know, I've lived in Holland for many years, they have an allergy to the word church. They'd rather call it a spiritual center than a church, or come to a spiritual something with light in it, or something like that. They seem to have this allergy to the word church. So they're moving into the movement of spiritual centers, or taking the demonstrations to places that appeal more to people. It's like just moving it forward within modern times. If we do the same thing week in, week out, what we've always done, then we're not progressing into the possibilities of what can happen in the future. What used to be, there were a lot of in some places, and they're beautiful hymns, but to switch up those hymns a bit and maybe just have something modern in there that still brings in that vibration of spirit and light. You understand, Lawrence? What do you think about that?
Definitely. I do love the reference he made there, talking about today's world. I'm a very big advocate of that. The demonstrators that we have at Paul Church, I look for that one thing in a service that everybody goes out with that little bit of hope. That's what I look for. I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, didn't wear a tie, or that third message was a bit dodgy. It's not that at all. It's what's being said. It's what the atmosphere that's being created. It's the whole experience of each service. Each and every service in my book should always be an experience. The whole collective, the ambience of where you are, the welcome, the greeting, the people around you, the conversation. Do you feel comfortable? Are you, is there healing? All these things, and being included in the service is, again, in my book, is a very great way of involving people, making them part of it, not going down the orthodox route of you must listen to me and there's this gulf between me and you because I'm superior and you aren't. It's just bringing people into that experience. And as I say, I do love the part about the writings, because I do tend to lean towards the more ancient scripts. And in fact, I have here a very old book, The Zodiac Messages, which was printed in, goodness me, first published in 1963. However, there is this brilliant text in there talking about Remembrance Day and the Spirit's view of where the human side of life may start to forget the remembrance side of things. And I just thought, that is so timeless, because that's exactly what we're talking about today, and you get this time and time again. So many of the ancient scripts, W.T. Steed, some of his writings were amazing, but they're talking about the world outside our doors today. And we have got to be part of today.
Well, I loved researching a lot about Albert Best, and he read a lovely book, In Touch with the Infinite, by Waldorf. I'm just looking it up because it was a beautiful book, but it was written in the 1900s, and they were talking about, within that touch with the infinite, about healing, the possibilities of healing, the possibilities of what In Touch with the Infinite was, which was a divine energy. But in such a way that people that are making groundbreaking discoveries in science and now in quantum physics right now, that book was written back then, actually was talking about these possibilities that we've now actually found with science, which is true. Like energy being everywhere and being in connection with everything at any time. Those sort of things, I think, is quite wonderful when you can look at things that have been written in such a way, and you see all these spiritual books coming out now, and it's basically regurgitated old news or old stuff that's been put into a new jacket and brought out as their own inspiration.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah.
And just quick hello to everybody. Do apologise, for some reason all I'm getting is Facebook users. There's often a little bit of argument between StreamYard and Facebook. So quick shout out to everybody. Somebody lovely from Sydney, whoever you are, welcome. And somebody else, little comment for you there.
So the book I mentioned was In Touch with the Infinite by Ralph Waldo Trine. It was actually published. Yeah, Trine. It was actually published in 1897, and amazing book. I mean, what he was writing in that was amazing. Where you think, well, he was writing about what quantum physics has been discovering in these years now, and making proof of it, that there's a connection to this infinite energy, this infinite intelligence. And I think, how wonderful is it when that was being philosophized and put into words back then, and yet we're seeing that it's actually being proved today.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Somebody's just commented there, it's called In Tune with the Infinite.
That's correct.
I believe this is the lady that we were talking about before we went live.
Oh, that was, I think that's Mrs. Hughes, I think.
I think that may well be.
From Dublin, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, this is interesting. Listening with interest, guys. I have over 2,000 books on spiritualism, mostly from the 1960s to 1930 or so. And it seems that very little has changed in the modern books, except to bring things up to date with sayings and modern vernacular.
Yeah, like just putting it into a new jacket, bringing it out there as something new. When I think, wow, like the wisdom of even if the wisdom of Tao and the wisdom of Buddhism and what was years and years and years ago, they'll put it into a new jacket and say, oh, this is something that's now. And it's like, oh, interesting how they can move inspiration into new books and new jackets in the now, where really not much has changed. Just like she said, the wording.
Yeah, I agree. And my personal thinking on that is that a lot of these lessons, when you pare back all the players, the time, the economy, the president, whatever the dressing up is, when you get down to the basic energy of the issue, it's going to be the same. You know, we fear war, or we should fear war.
Yeah.
We worry about life and our health. You know, there's very few energies, but they are all tackled. I was reading, and it was W.T. Steed. And in the book, the other world was asked about what their thoughts were on the death penalty. And the other world responded and said, you, as in us here, do not realize the complications that you give to us by dispatching these people early to our world. And I applied that to today. When I look at, when we dealing with people who are very... entitled about things and materialistic and nothing else matters. I just think the same there. When these people, as with everybody, there will come a time when they make that transition and the other world are probably going to look at it in the same light, because we aren't doing the to go back to the death penalty, dispatching people early, through the death penalty, without trying to educate people this side of life to start them on the path on the next side of life. And as I say, if you look at society today, there's many, many, many cases out there. You just think, if you could get that glimmer of knowledge in there, if you could get that little bit of understanding and thoughtfulness, are you going to evolve that person's journey from this side to that side? Have I made sense, or have I just waffled on?
Well, I mean, moving from this world to the next, in any circumstance, is certainly a massive shift for the idea or perception of our mind, moving to the spirit world in that way, Lawrence. So it's really looking at, when you look at that, it's like, the more that this is what I find with all the books I've read about spiritualism, the afterlife. It's like, when you think about it, it's also a personal experience when someone passes to the spirit world. When my brother passed to the spirit world, he passed on to me a different experience that I'd read in books, which was, even though he'd had quite a traumatic pass into the spirit world, he let me know that he passed on quite peacefully to the other side. So that shift, even though it was like a traumatic to even think about it, but when he passed, he was in the light, and he was in an infinite place of love, and there was connection to loved ones, and just that experience, thinking, well, the more that I understand about the spirit world, the more I realize I know nothing about the possibilities of the spirit world compared to the infinite possibilities in the spirit world. And that's something that In Tune with the Infinite was mentioning in the book about the infinite possibilities, but also I've realized that someone that communicates from the spirit world can communicate with me and 20 other mediums at the same time. When my brother passed to the spirit world, he could communicate with me, he could communicate with my mother, with my sister, and with my brother, with his girlfriend, and all around the same time, but we were living in different countries. So that what our limited beliefs of what the spirit can bring and the possibilities are just limited by our own mind. They're not limited by what the spirit can bring. So when we're looking about moving mediumship forward, it's looking at, okay, so we've discovered it's possible over Zoom. We've discovered it's possible through a computer network. We've discovered that it's possible to do it from a distance. There's so much change in our perception of our mind, and so progression is there. But it's looking at where mediumship, where spiritualism can go, if it wasn't limited, if it wasn't limited by holding back with the mental restrictions, what would then be the possibilities? And I love philosophizing about this, Lawrence, because I'm like, what would it be? It's like most of the time we like to feel like, oh, we need to nurture it, we need to look after it, we need to put it in a nice cozy box, and yet when we think about it, the infinite possibilities, maybe it can actually work itself. Maybe when the more that we let go of it, this movement in connection with the spirit world can actually move forward further than what we ever think it could, if given the opportunity.
Yeah, really good point. Yeah. Going back to when we talk about the pioneers, I mean, these were people. There's a wonderful video on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, people, do look it up. It's Gordon Higginson and Coral Pold, who was an artist, demonstrating in London. And the depth of the evidence that Gordon was giving was phenomenal. It really was. We don't see that today in our movement. It was names, addresses, and describing. If I were to come to the house, I would go up 4 steps to a green door. It's just absolutely amazing. Yeah. Because it was new. It was this huge revelation. And is there a thought here that actually our movement has gone a little bit retrograde? Because I asked the spirit world, why do we not see that level of evidence today? And the answer was very simple and very annoying, quite frankly, because they just turned around and said, we haven't changed. And I thought, yeah, I get you. I get that totally. The other world saying, we haven't changed. So where is the change? It's your side of life. And playing it safe in our evidential mediumship and the philosophizing, we do tend to play it safe. And so immediately, we're not only limiting the other world's input, we're also limiting our own spirit, because this is part and parcel of why we're here. You're on a journey, Jason. I'm on a journey. Our work and what we do is part of that journey, but it is not the sole reason whatsoever.
No.
We got to maintain and keep that balance and learn and grow and evolve. So maybe, and you brought up very nicely there, saying about like we're now used to sharing our mediumship on Zoom and other platforms. And, it has made people go, wow, I can give where was I working the other night? Oh, tomorrow night, I'm working in America. I mean, how amazing is that? Like, I'm sat in the UK talking to the other world for somebody in America. That's a liberating thought if you allow it to percolate through. And it's exactly the same with yourself there, where you've worked with different people and your experience with your brother. When you allow that to percolate through, it does sort of like go, oh, the doors are starting to open again.
When I first came into contact with mediumship, and I was being taught mediumship, and that's what this Facebook user has mentioned, which I know with no name. When I was being taught, it was like, you're only allowed to bring through one communicator at a time, and it had to be done this certain way, and had to be this much of evidence. And once you'd established that evidence, and then you could move into a little bit more about the character, and then you finish, and then you move on to the next one contact. And that's how it used to be. But that was the way when a teacher teaches you, it doesn't matter what teacher of mediumship they are, they've learned from their own teacher. And that's what this Facebook user has mentioned. So they can only teach the way they understand mediumship. So if we are being taught one way of doing mediumship, let's say evidential mediumship, you've got to bring through 10 pieces of evidence. And then after you've brought through that 10 pieces of evidence and they're correct, then you're allowed to give a bit of emotion and then maybe a little message, but nothing too much. Whatever you do, don't go psychic. And then shift to the next contact, do another one. And we've been taught to work in what could be considered, and I'll put it out there, I ended up working more robotic when I learned mediumship that way. And it wasn't until I actually said to the spirit world, just give me something different. Let's just do something completely different. I still work evidentially. It's still in the way I've been taught. But I always say that whenever I'm teaching now, look at your own unique possibilities, for everyone is different. Whatever you do, don't work the same way as me. Work differently. So if we can pass on information, not the same old, because teacher teaches student becomes teacher, they teach student, and then that student becomes a teacher, and they teach student, and we end up teaching the same way. And I know people might say, well, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Well, actually, I feel we do. Yeah. Because if we sit with spirit ourselves and our spirit, what's the possibilities of doing mediumship now? How could we work differently? What inspiration could we bring? And it would be, I love that. Let spirit be your teacher. I mean, absolutely, because at the end of the day, let spirit be your teacher. We can learn so much if we sit in the silence and just listen to spirit and say, okay, how would you like to do it today? The findings that we have in consciousness, where we know that mediums can shift their consciousness to connect to the spirit world, where they actually have an effect on the brain, where they can shift to a different consciousness and connect to spirit. It's amazing. I used to think, it's going to take me at least 5 minutes to do that. I'm going to have to sit in the power. I'm going to have to sit for 5 minutes. And once I've sit in the power, then I can shift my energy up, can expand my energy out. And then I can work with spirit. And what I've found since sitting with spirit, I don't need to do all of that. I need to shift my consciousness to spirit, welcome them, and they're there. And it can be as simple as that. And it's just knowing that the shift of consciousness, and I've actually tried this with students that are they've only just been starting out, that they found that they could shift their consciousness to spirit quite easily, quite quickly. A new way of connecting for them. Also for me, I always look at trying to do things in a different way with the one ear listening to the spirit world and saying, what can we do? What can we achieve? How can we do things differently? And not only just have the evidence, but have that blending of spirit, and where you can feel that the spirit communicator's there, and it's just a wonderful merge of spirit with spirit, and it's beautiful to experience, and that's what really inspires me, Lawrence. And so I totally agree with what's been said with this Facebook user who has no name.
Very annoying.
Do we to create change? Maybe we need to step a little bit out of the box. Obviously, we're going to keep the same professionalism, but it's to invite in more inspiration in a different way, helping people find their unique possibilities within their mediumship.
Yeah.
Instead of the same old on the platform.
Yeah.
That we
do this, do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I pick up on, and wherever I hear it, I always try and correct it in a training capacity, is this disconnectedness that we have with the other world. I mean, the very words, the other world, it's not, it's this world. We are in the world of spirit right here and now. The world of spirit is within us right here and right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you hear people saying, all right, well, we've got to raise your consciousness, raise it up and go to the spirit. I'm just like, why do we disconnect from the other world? We are part of the other world. When our mind is in that state of awareness, which you quite rightly say we can do with ease, we practice.
Yeah.
There is no disassociation. There is no distance. All is one and one is all. But as I say, we do see this disconnection. I always remember one of my teachers saying, clear your mind and then ask the spirit for something. And I'm like, how the hell do you do that? Because if I've cleared my mind, I'm not in the right state to ask anything. And if I ask something, then I'm not clear mind. But it's just conversation and communion. We're going to go a little bit off topic here, but it's really interesting. Another Facebook user, folks. Apologies for this. Just saying, excellent conversation, thank you. Given that this is the month in which we honour those who have served in wars, what are your thoughts as spiritualists to the morality of spirit world's view of armed conflict? This question is prompted by recent events in our modern world that seems more perilous than ever. So that is a really good question. I love that. Thank you, whoever you are. What do you think?
Well, when I see it from the spirit world's point of view, whenever there's armed conflict, I always have the feeling that the spirit world are just holding space and holding us in love, that we're going to have a good way through this this possibility of world conflict, and I feel that what I've felt self from spirit is that it's more looking at how can we be of service to humanity, or how can we band together and support each other, right? Because conflict in any form, like war, is completely the most aggressive form of it. But when we say, what can we do to support our neighbours, or to support our people that come to us, and a lot of the time, as people, what we tend to do is we like, as long as we can sort out our own family, make sure we're all right. And I hope that when it comes down to it, that we be, as a spiritualist way, we said, okay, let's make sure that as many people as we know is also all right. Let's check in on each other. Let's be there together. because whatever we go through, if we go through anything like this, we're going through it together, and it's only through being unified that we're going to be stand together going through it. So my thoughts are, as long as we don't forget our own, our own morals, as long as we don't forget our own possibilities. I think a good analogy for it is when we all got in, every country in the world went through lockdown and suddenly got put in lockdown, we all went through the same thing. And so we became, at that point, unified in the same, going through the same thing. I think the power of prayer is something that's very, very thing. And the inspiration I felt from Spirit at the time is I just feel that they're not only holding space, but they're praying for us in these times where I just feel that prayer, energy, and support. And I really do believe that with every fibre in my being. How can we be a better humanitarian in times like this? Is to support each other, and to support humanity. I'm not a great supporter of who I feel should win the war, so I will not support either one, because I don't support war. I actually support humanity, and that's where I like to bring my energy to. On the other hand, if I feel fear, and many people may fear in this, and that's a human thing, to feel fear, I feel, well, I will sit and I will feel that, and I will experience my, even though as a spiritualist I know I have an infinite soul, I will sit and just feel my human fear and experience it and not neglect it, hold on to it, and experience every part of it in my fibre, because I won't ignore it. I won't step away from it. And in that way, and for me, it was also with when I had my TIA, and when I had my TIA, that was the first time I felt, oh my God, I might have met my maker. This might be the day where I'm going home to Spirit. And I felt the fear, and part of my healing was to accept it, and to really accept it with every fibre of my being. And in doing so, I suddenly felt relief, and I suddenly felt that my acceptance brought room for healing. And in that acceptance, I felt that it was bringing and moving me forward. And that's what helped me on my healing journey, was the acceptance of emotions. So I think within this, and I think war's a good thing, because everyone's got a different idea about wars. When there's two parties at war, or political events going on, everyone's got a meaning about it. But as long as we remember that we're all humanity, and that if someone's speaking from fear, then let them experience their fear and accept them for it. And when someone's speaking from neglecting their fear and trying to be overconfident, then accept them as that's part of their process. And I think it's really accepting each other is one of the greatest gifts that we can do. And I feel that acceptance is in itself about own personal emotions, each other, is such a healing thing to do, and understanding. So that's where my morals are on this sit, and my inspiration from Spirit. I don't know about you, Lawrence, but what do you feel about it?
Oh, wonderfully answered. Thank you, Jason. That was actually, I will go back and re-watch that, because I was hanging on every word.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
There's a lot of factors in there. I do see quite a lot that we tend to regard the spiritual world with human emotions. And that can be, in my view, a little bit misleading. So, and it is there the spirit world's view of armed conflict. I'll put that thought out there, that from the spirit side of life, to see people returning to spirit is not going to be as emotionally damaging from that side of life as it is from this side of life. Because when we see the vast numbers, there will be a damage. There will be, this acknowledgement of how sad it is. We would want to make it wrong, wouldn't we? As human beings, we would want to make this wrong, and quite rightly so. We would want to make this wrong, but the spirit world's perception of it, I don't think they deal with things as in right and wrong. They'll just say, look at the sadness of it, because they can see further and beyond. If we could all sit down around a table and really take home that thing of an injustice done to one is done to all, and work with that vibration, we could have a paradise here. But we do not, because we allow corruption, we allow materialism, we allow a lot of the lower energies to run rampant. But we've always got that free will to oppose these things. That is always there. There was a post out about one of the major supermarket chains and the profits they were making. And I just put a comment in there just saying, well, don't shop there then. And all these people just jumping on this bandwagon and going, oh, we've got to, if you are opposed that much to something, I'm very simplistic. You just say no. And that's a very powerful stance, in my view, at this time. No, this is wrong. And keep on with that energy. When we look at the conflicts, they're over minuscule things. They're over a momentary flash of glory or financial gain. We've seen, again, we are coming into the festive season, and again, we are seeing the adverts coming up that we've seen for years on years on years of the different conflict zones in the world and how the population are suffering because of the ongoing conflict. Well, stop selling them bloody arms.
Yeah.
It's really not hard.
Yeah.
And if you won't stop them, if you won't stop selling them, then it is down to the population to go, this is wrong. You are perpetuating this state that you want us to put our hands in our pockets to help those to keep this perpetual state of warfare going. It is wrong. No. We are not accepting that. We will not allow you to export arms. Any money going in there is purely humanitarian, not for political gain. It really is a minefield. And I can see why, going back to our pioneers, that spiritualism was very much the home of the activist. Through various political ways, for certain laws, there was the child labour laws were very much overhauled by an ardent spiritualist, because you can just see the injustice on a humanitarian level. And that's where it starts to get, what do we do now? We just turn over, don't we? Oh, I'm not watching this, I'm going to turn over and watch the other side. Where the other world, they empower you to realise and understand that all life is sacred, whichever existence that's in, that sacredness never goes. And when things are out of balance, which is normally the cause of all of our issues, there is an imbalance somewhere. We as spiritualists, I will say that, we have the opportunity to try and make a difference. To not turn over the channel, to say no, to look at ways to petition, to look at ways to run for public office or whatever it takes. But we have this awareness that there is life after life. That is an undeniable fact. It's not a belief system, it's a fact. We know that. But that brings so much value to life this side of life, because we're here for this wonderful experience, and that's certainly not to be, blown up in a battlefield somewhere because somebody wants to make a fast buck. which is what a lot of the wars boil down to.
Yeah, when I think about, 2 world wars, we don't really need a third one. I think that we've tried it twice. It doesn't work. But when we look at the situation, again, is not to neglect what's going on, not to to turn the channel or move away from it, but certainly to experience what do you feel and express those feelings with friends, colleagues, whoever you come into contact with. Because at the end of the day, you may find out that all of us have the same feelings about war or the apparent possibility of war, and that we would really all like to have a world that supports more humane and humanity in certain ways. And I think that's more apparent now. That people really want to support more of each other. We're doing it together. A very spiritualist view is the unity together, community. And if we could use our communities to even if it's within our vote, that we say, like, we'll vote for people that we believe will progress spiritualism, or we'll vote for people that we feel that will be more will not be supporting a war in a certain way. And in that way, that's what we can create. And we may feel that we're just a minuscule thing on the horizon, that, oh, what can I do to make change? But it's about community. And when we look about what our pioneers went through, who did go through wars and survived and came back, and they continue to serve spiritualism in that way, bringing joy, comfort, and relief to people. And certainly every year there's celebration of remembrance for people, because we said we stand on the shoulders of the pioneers, but really we stand on the shoulders of soldiers that went out and went out to, in their way of protecting in wars that they didn't have a choice about. They had to serve, but because they did, we can live in a world and live in a place where we live today because of their service. And it's having that respect for that. So in a way, we have respect for people that have been before us, and then have a better appreciation of the comforts that we have in our own home and in our own lives today. And so even though we've got this what might happen hanging over us, it's just hanging on to it and saying, well, my views are, and I feel this, and to share that with each other. And hopefully this can have a knock-on effect, not just within a small community, but that we can share our views with each other, because we still have our freedom of choice and we still have our voice, and we can use that voice to the best of our abilities. So standing on the shoulders of the pioneers, standing on the shoulders of 2 world wars, and we've got this. We have this comfort that has been created through that, and we can still practice mediumship in a certain way. We can practice our spiritualist beliefs in a certain way, bring them forward. How are we progressing? Have we learnt from the past? Can we create a movement for the future that could create change? These are all things that we can think about, and think about within ourselves and within our communities and churches and centres, and think about what could we do to create change in some way, even if it's a small way. Smallest, minuscule ways. It's all energetic. It's all the energetic movement.
And again, that goes back to looking at the way we present our movement to the public eye. how do we present that? Is there scope there for change, for adaptation? We did go through a phase very much where it was change churches to centres. I always found that a little bit puzzling, because 9 times out of 10 they would change a church to a centre and celebrate by having a divine service with 2 ordained ministers taking it, and I just think that doesn't fit with me. I get it that you're going to change to a centre. I do understand that. In some cases, I saw it quite disrespectful to the people who had built that church up to bring it to that point where the change was made, where signage was just torn down and shown, out with the old. And I'm just thinking, my God, the pioneers of your church must be really chuffed upstairs looking at all this. This remembrance, and this is like a coin a phrase of today, the attitude of gratitude. It's very important. Everything we do is built on the shoulders of other people. And if you include and hold an observance to that, but not be chained or manacled by it either. That's a very fine line, isn't it?
Well, I like the way you mentioned that, because even a church is built on the foundation of others. It didn't just arrive today. It was built on the foundation of others, and it's as long as you've always got respect for what's been in the past, and look at what can we energetically change within a church. Because you may say, I can't change the building, I can't change the chairs, or maybe you could change the chairs, maybe you could renovate, maybe you can't afford to renovate. But if you changed energetically in some way, and it's in the energy of that movement, you see, it's not just, let's change everything because we need to make it more modern. Sometimes you can do things in a way where people feel welcome. I've been into some spiritualist churches, walked in there as a stranger, and just felt not welcome. And the community people that were there were all welcome, but as a stranger, when you walked in, it was like, there's someone new there. No one came in to welcome, so there was none of that welcoming. And so it's like, we don't want to have the them and us. Well, like, I'm a spiritualist, so I'm all right, Jack, and anyone that walks in, they're new. Really, we've got to think in the spiritualist way. It's like everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome in a church, and if they've moved their church into the name of a centre, or they're actually running out of a centre, because I know some churches have had to move their buildings and moved into higher premises. As long as the energy's there, and as long as it's about community, and as long as it's about including people, and that we listen and care about the community, I think that's the greatest gift that we have with the churches that we have, and it could be, in some places, it could be better. It could be better. I've been into some spiritualist churches, by the way, not all that experience, and when I've walked in, thought, I feel so welcome here. Such a wonderful church, such a wonderful feeling. You just feel welcome. But really, it's about bringing that energy of spirit to everyone. Not just think that we're the elite, so it's all right for us, but that everyone is welcome. Because when spiritualism was begun, I'm speaking a bit Dutch now, must be my brain. Anyway, but when it began, it was the welcoming to everyone that was interested in the philosophy, in the phenomena of spirit, the mediumship. And it was like the movement was how it spread with this new energy of life, like life after life, and it was so inspirational, and it was radical, it was new, I think what Lawrence was saying earlier, which was like, it seems to be, losing it, or it seems to be, it's not quite, and it's like, what could change? And maybe that change could just be energetically yourself. Maybe that could be your community. Maybe that could be your thought process. It might be like what was written in tune with the infinite possibilities, which far progress the understanding of the mind. Who are we to judge when really that even judging someone will be holding yourself back in some way. It's like you may judge yourself too harshly as well, and it's looking at that and say, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. I should be more uplifting. So what I like to think as human beings and communities and people as energy, and like meeting Lawrence today and meeting you all on Facebook, we all bring our own energy. So our own energy is fantastic. So if we take care of ourselves and our energy, what we're going to bring is a lovely, wonderful energy that could be healing for somebody else. If we listen and if we communicate and we don't create conflict, then we're going to create something new, something that sparkles. And I think that if we've been doing our spiritualism same old, it might be because we want to hold on to the old idea of how things have always been done. But then maybe we just need to think that little bit about, how can we create an ambience where everyone feels welcome?
Definitely. I'm entranced here. This is lovely. I'm really enjoying this. Thank you, Jason.
I've been enjoying this evening as well.
Okay. But yeah, it is that we have got so many attributes under the banner of spiritualism. But yet we do tend to pin our flag on the evidential, the message. Very sad, we'll have a night of discussion followed by a demonstration of mediumship. We'll have a coffee morning and a get together with a demonstration of mediumship. It's just sort of like, you don't need to do that all the time. Where are we celebrating the brotherhood of man? In its full guises. The other world don't want to have to be doing messages just to support that, because there is enough in that to support itself when you approach it in that right energy, when you approach it in that openness and that will and want for it to make a difference.
Yeah.
We have a bereavement group here once a month as one example, and that serves a great purpose. It really does. And the participation is limited by the number of people who at this time are going through that bereavement process. But nonetheless, the ones who attend receive that healing. This is, to me, the whole point of spiritualism is about healing. They receive that healing because they can express themselves in this safe environment. They know that there's nobody sitting in judgment of them. The old-fashioned, you should be over it by now. Terrible thing to say to somebody who's grieving. And that's just one tiny part of it. There are so many things that we can do. And a lot of people do. We do tend to cleave sometimes to the negative things. And unfortunately, our world of spiritualism is very much on the social media side of things. So it's sort of like we are looking at things through a very defined lens. And the negative things stand out more than the positive things at times, because that's by nature. I always say negativity is very lazy energy because it takes no effort. Anybody can be lazy, but because of that, it's a very short-lived energy. But positivity, because it takes time and effort and input to create that positivity, it then becomes that self-sustaining thing. And there are plenty of places doing some really good works out there. But it's the old-fashioned thing in training. We used to say to people, remember the goalkeeper thing. In 100 matches, he did 99 brilliant saves, and he really fumbled one. Which one does everybody remember? The one that really got fumbled. Yeah. And it's the same with our view of spiritualism. We look across, and there are some great things going on out there, but then we've had the recent upsets arouse and all that, and that tends to take the focus and the attention, and which is sad.
It does, doesn't it? Because you mentioned on social media and things, and the thing is, if you're looking for negativity on social media, you will find more and more negativity.
Yeah.
And there is a program on Netflix called Social Dilemma, and if you watch that, how they studied social media, and they saw that that people's beliefs were being actually moved through. If they believed in negativity, they'll continue to get more and more posts about it, not just on Facebook, but over all the different things. And they found that people were being more segregated through their belief systems because they were being fed socially from social media all these things that were in their belief system. So you ended up having a creating division instead of creating unity. And in many ways, I see that happening over social media in different ways, where I see division, which I really would love to see unity in. And when we have a view, one person said this to me, a Dutch guy, because I don't like to take credit that's something that's not my own. He said, anyone that points the finger at somebody like that, oh, look at them. He says, don't forget there's 3 fingers pointing at you. What's your part in it? Because if you're pointing one finger at someone else, there are 3 fingers pointing at you. So if you're pointing in judgment, what's that got to say about you? What's not being resolved within inside of yourself?
I like that.
Yeah. And lovely guy. I could sit and talk to him for hours. But yeah, when he mentioned that, I thought, yeah, I can certainly take that on board. And that's when I say, are we going to sit in judgment, or are we going to sit with what's taking place within, and what is going on inside of us? Because it might need some work here instead of pointing over there. Because it's all very good to say, I feel better when I'm looking at negativity and that's worse than what's going on within me. But aren't we neglecting something within inside of ourselves? So I do like to put the finger on these things, because, we really need to look at what is our part in these things, and please, anyone that wants to look up Social Dilemma, please do look it up on Netflix and watch it. And then you might have your own opinion over what's being served to you on your phones, on your social media. I like to look up really good things, music and fantastic songs. So I get served a lot of songs, a lot of music, and I don't really get served that much negativity. So that's what my portion is when I go on my social networks. So yeah, and I love to share my inspiration. That's why I've loved being here, Lawrence, because I do love sharing inspiration and philosophizing over many things, and realizing that as a human being, no, we can't change anything on our own. We certainly can't know the answer to everything, but having the human ability to understand that even if somebody's got a different point of view than we do, that they could be right within their own life experience. It might not be yours, but someone else might have been through something else in their lifetime where they've learned different lessons. And unless we listen, we're not going to hear any wisdom coming out of their mouths. I do believe in conversation, and I certainly do believe in communicating. And if we did more of that in this world, I think we'd resolve a lot more issues than what are being resolved, than just saying, this is my standpoint, that's your standpoint, you're wrong and I'm right.
Yeah. And self-reflection as well is to me, a very important part of that. When things are said and I react in certain ways, I stop and go, why is that pushing my buttons?
Yeah.
Why have I allowed that to energize me in that way? What is it in me that has reacted with that? Because it takes two forces to create that reaction. So there's something in me that has reacted with that. And understanding that, where that comes from.
Absolutely.
And, does it need managing? Does it need toning down? Does it need building up? Who knows? It's all fun finding out, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is. I mean, it can be. I think I had one time, I think somebody said something about the spirit world and they had no understanding of it. And suddenly I felt myself getting angry at them for not understanding the spirit world like I understand the spirit world. And I held myself and I felt into that anger, and I realized underneath it was a strong belief in me, or a strong feeling within me that wanted to support the spirit in the spirit world in the best possible way, and didn't want the spirit world to be presented in the wrong way. I wanted them to be, and so that even though I had that moral, I kept my anger to myself, and I had to look inside and realize, that's the gift. That's actually a gift in me. That's arising here, because sometimes under the emotion there's a gift. We just need to discover what is that gift, and what is it that we can do with that gift. Yeah,
I like that. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but that ties back very nicely to a couple of comments I made before we went live. The frustration sometimes that I feel when, as a working medium, the way our movement, philosophy, religion, whatever your terminology, it doesn't matter, it's the same damn thing, is presented. And I do get frustrated at times. I do get a little bit emotionally invested in things and just think, there's so much more. It's not that, it's everything. Come on, I can feel it now. I want to stand on the rooftop now. Hang on, I'll just take the camera upstairs. You do. But again, so you recognize, and again, everything is steps, isn't it? So you recognize why then you react like that. So the next logical step is, how are you going to change it?
How are you going to change it? Exactly. So then there's a question, do you want to stand up for spirit? Do you want to stand up and demonstrate the possibility of communication with the spirit world, to prove to people that there's a possibility? Do you want to speak about it? Do you want to philosophize about it? To sit and do nothing is no movement at all.
Correct. Entropy.
Coming back to that word movement, when we started this conversation, Lawrence, it comes all round in big circle, doesn't it, really?
Very much. It's fascinating. I love it. I do love these conversations because they do. I know that the other world are working through everybody, people out there watching, people putting wonderful comments in, yourself, myself. You can just see that finger of inspiration just giving little nudges, because we get enlightened. Every time I do one of these evenings, at the end, I just think, that was really interesting. I like that. I really like that. Or, I'm not quite sure I would put it that way, whatever. But there is the movement side.
Yeah.
It's a living, breathing organism, and we are all part of it. And when we ignore it or put it to one side, we are just limiting ourselves again. Anyway, Jason, sir, what a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
I have enjoyed myself. Thank you for having me on this Lyceum night. It's been lovely being here and lovely talking to you and everyone. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, Lawrence. So it's been wonderful talking to you.
Good. Thank you. So have I. Thank you, everybody out there, putting your comments in. So thank you for being part of this evening. Don't forget you can watch it again on Catch Up. And if it's okay with you, Jason, I'd like to release it as a podcast, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no problem.
Brilliant. Because the podcasts are really handy because with a video, you feel like you've got to sit down for an hour and watch it. But with a podcast, you can just nip it on while you're driving around and everything. It works really well. So, yeah, I shall get on with that once we come off air. But in the meantime, everybody, thank you so much. Please remember, you can keep up with Paul Church. Tomorrow morning at 10 to 11, we will have our remembrance service, not 11 o'clock, but 10 to 11. I have the honour of taking that alongside a number of invited guests. Then we will be back on next Saturday with another Lyceum evening. So in the meantime, thank you, everybody, and a very good night from me, Jason, sir.
And a good night from me. Thank you.